everybody, I just wanted to do a quick video about something that I was struggling with a little bit recently, and this is a type of plugin that I wasn't 100% sure on how it actually worked. Let me show you here in my plugin list. It's this MIDI controlled effect. So Eventide has a bunch of these. You'll see a number of them from other places as well. But these MIDI controlled effects, at first glance, I was just thinking, oh, they're just going to go into an effect slot. And the truth is they can go inside effect slots too, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the full functionality. So I think sometimes, let me just load a plugin here on this channel. I'll come to Eventide and I'll say, oh, black hole, no MIDI. I want the black hole with MIDI. And so I load that up. The problem is that MIDI is never going to get to it in any of your channels. You have to actually set it up in a different way. And that's what, at first glance, I was like, I feel like I should know this. And I didn't ever really think about how to set this up correctly. So I had figured it out this week with a little help. But it turns out that anything that's an effect which is MIDI enabled, you load inside the instrument slots. So for instance, I've got this drum kit, which if I push play, you're not hearing at all. And then I've got the H910 harmonizer track, which is this unit right here. It has a keyboard, but that keyboard's not for use of playing like a synthesizer or something. This is just for doing control data. So you could put your mouse on it and do it that way. But I had to create a new instrument track. And on that instrument track, where I would normally load my instruments, that's where you come through and you go to the very bottom and you go to Audio Unit AU MIDI Controlled Effects. You can see I've got one of the synths here with some effects. I've got my Eventide batch, Reason Studio plugin effects, and then we have the things from Waves. And I thought it was interesting that all of the NX plugins are in here. I haven't actually experimented why. I get it why like the Waves real-time tuner would be, because that's something that you could actually send some MIDI data to. And then the Brower Motion, I need to experiment with that as well. But the Eventide set, look how many of these are MIDI enabled. In fact, this is a huge part of what we do. So I loaded the H910 harmonizer here, and then I put on the side chain the instrument that's the drummer from the track above it. Just turn down the fader on that, but it still makes it out because you're using it as a side chain. And then I can now send MIDI data to this if I wanted to, which I'll show you in a minute why I needed that. The other thing that you needed for this, so let's say that I wanted to put this harmonizer directly onto a track. I'll show you one of the other side effects of doing it the way they have it made. So I'm going to go to the H910 harmonizer. You don't have a side chain when you load it as an effect. Even though it's possible to do that, they have it set up so it doesn't do that. So you can only use it with side chains if you load it in the instrument slot of an instrument track. Okay, so now that I have the side chain here, I am using not the MIDI input to do this. If you did that, you could set it up so you could do the MIDI input and it would change pitch and harmonize with the original. Instead, I wanted to do this with the envelope. So the envelope follower here, I have that set up. But the feedback knob, I wanted to control with MIDI. And so now I've got above this, let's come back to this track. I've got the modulator here set up with essentially a sample and hold function or random function. And it's controlling the harmonizer feedback knob right there. So that's nice that we can do that. We can set that up with the sidechain so that the drums come in here. The feedback is controlled by the Midi effect, and we come up with some really interesting sounds this way. So this is what this sounds like. I don't know if I have to, I don't think I have to solo both. Let's find out. You come up with some really interesting drum sounds, which we don't have to use that pattern. The pattern is set by the modulator, and how that feedback is changed randomly. But you could do more consistent things. You could have a sweeping. You could do all kinds of stuff. I just like being able to do it that way. So I'm also using the H3000 from Eventide on this bass thing, but it's not in an instrument slot, so I can't control this with a live MIDI input. But it's on an instrument channel, and so let's do a modulator here. And then which parameter? I'm not sure which parameter I want to actually do too much with, because, let's see, expert. Let me just show you one way of doing this. So we learn the plugin parameter, and then I can click on it. So even though this isn't in the instrument slot, the MIDI effects still work with it. It's just going to be a little bit different in the sense that we can't do a live MIDI input. So let me show you what the live MIDI input is all about. Just to give you a flavor of that. So I'm going to do a new instrument track here. And under the instrument, we're going to do the AU MIDI controlled effect under Eventide. And say we want to do the harmonizer. We'll do the original, well, not the original, but we'll do the 949 harmonizer. And then on the side chain, hopefully you can hear this. Okay. Change the remote to MIDI.
Check.
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 Hello. 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 Hello.
So let's turn that off for a second. Okay, so you could hear hopefully how I was changing the pitch of my voice. We could actually do a blend with a mix, and you could get the two voices together. And I mean, this is a unit that was originally released hardware and is just now become modeled in the software. So this was one of the original, pitch, controlled via MIDI units that was ever out there. It's pretty awesome. We can do far more complex things with something like, let's come back into Eventide. We'll do the Octavox. So voice, again, I'm just going to have my own voice, but check, 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 one, and so forth. You get the idea. But MIDI controlled, check, check. Let's turn on more of these. Check. Let's see. There we go. And so I can do a live MIDI trigger into this to decide which pitches to use. I mean, that's pretty cool, but you have to load up the Octavox in the instrument slot of an instrument channel, sidechain the source from whatever you want, and then you can do some of that MIDI input and actually program MIDI data out there. So pretty handy way to work. If you've ever looked at your list of plugins and wondered what the AU MIDI controlled effects were, that's how you use them. It allows you to send MIDI data to those things and actually incorporate the control via MIDI, either a live input or on the MIDI track itself. Pretty cool. Not as straightforward as it could be. I certainly think that having to use sidechains in that way is a little bit lame, but effective. And these plugins from Eventide sound awesome. So perhaps something that you could find a workflow for. Okay, that's it. Just want to share this, and hope you're having a great week. Hope you're having a good holiday week if you're doing holiday stuff, and see you soon.